Why is this happening to me? All I ever wanted was to be loved by anyone. Do I not deserve it? Hi everyone, my name is Nikki and I'm 14 years old. And it seems like my dreams about having a real family will never come true. My parents were not very good people. They shouldn't have even been entrusted with a cat, let alone a child. But we don't choose who we're born to, do we? So, the only things I remember from my childhood are constantly feeling hungry and cold and having to hide under my bed very quickly when I heard footsteps approaching my room. Social services saved me. They promised I would have food, a lot of beautiful toys, and most importantly, no one would hurt me anymore. I happily went with them without even thinking twice. I was not going to miss my parents, and I thought it would be, in any case, better in an orphanage than at home. The reality turned out to be a little, worse. There really was food, and I shared a room with another girl my age, and we even had some toys. At first, I was honestly happy, and I even started to sleep normally again, without having nightmares or constantly waiting for footsteps behind the door. But then, I found out that things in my new world weren't as great or as fun as I thought they were gonna be. And it also turned out that you didn't have to be a villain to hurt other people. Indifference hurts just as bad. The teachers didn't notice, or I guess didn't want to notice, what was going on in the orphanage at all. The older guys took advantage of that. They took the most delicious food and things from the younger kids and forced them to do chores in their place. And if they refused, they were bullied hard and would even probably get beat up. And I learned that one the hard way. I didn't realize at first that I was just supposed to agree with everything and just do as they said. After I got locked in a toilet for disobeying them for a day, I went to the teacher and complained. But nobody cared, and the older kids got angry and, well, long story short, it was terrible. It was the first time I ever thought that life at home might not have been that bad. I don't know what would have happened to me next if it hadn't been for one young teacher, Amanda. She was the only one who ever felt sorry for me back then. She brought me to the medical center and sat next to me the whole night, telling me fairy tales. No one had ever done that for me before. And that's how I made my first friend. Amanda and I started spending a lot of time together. Well, at least as much as we could. She protected me from the older guys and made me study and took care of me, just like a real mother would. And at nights, we often climbed up on the roof of the orphanage and looked at the stars and told each other different stories. Amanda often said that I shouldn't give up. She was sure I would definitely get adopted by good people very soon, and they would love me and take care of me and do everything good parents were supposed to do. I just had to believe in it. And so I did. I believed everything she told me. And then a young couple who wanted to adopt a child came to our shelter. I thought they were so cool, nice and happy and well-dressed. And I decided that this was my chance for happiness. I could tell that we liked each other right away. I read them poems, and I showed them my drawings, and I behaved like a really good, decent girl. And they chose me! I was so happy! And a week later, after saying goodbye to Amanda and packing my things, I was already driving towards a new, happy life in a beautiful, expensive car. It was like those fairy tales that Amanda had told me. Molly and Jack, my new mom and dad, were telling me how great we were gonna live now, laughing all the while. And then I saw their house, a real castle, and my wonderful room, and a lot of toys, and new outfits. And it was like I was Cinderella, and my fairy godmother had finally found me. I was the happiest girl in the world. My new parents and I spent a lot of time together. They helped me do my homework and took me to shopping centers and bought me everything I wanted. And they told me about different places and amazing things. And on the weekends, we always went to new and cool places. I would take a flag pin and stick it into a large map of the United States at random. And then we'd go there. I even got to see the Grand Canyon, the most amazing sight I'd ever seen in my short life. And we also went and saw water parks, museums, theaters, a real ocean. I had never even in my life dreamt of something like that. Also, we had these wonderful little traditions. Before going to bed, my mom would always come and say goodnight and read a fairy tale to me. In the mornings, my dad would drive me to school so I wouldn't have to use the school bus. We spent our evenings together in the living room and told each other how our day had gone. And it was great, really. I loved these people with my whole heart, and I tried to do everything so that my new mom and dad wouldn't be disappointed in me. I helped around the house. I got up before everyone else to cook my mom's favorite breakfast. I studied well, and I always took care of my things. But after a while, I suddenly noticed that they had stopped loving me. You know, children feel things like that, even if it's hard to explain. It's just that at some point, my mother stopped saying goodnight to me. And my dad was often in a hurry to go to work, and so he started to give me money for the bus instead. And suddenly, there were no more snacks in the lunchbox to take to school anymore. In the evenings, my parents would tell me to stay at home as they went to go to a restaurant together. I hoped it was just because they worked a lot and wanted to be left alone sometimes. But the more time passed, the more scary moments like this there were. And at some point, I realized that my fairy tale was over. Now, the things that I'd been doing for them simply because I wanted to make them happy became my chores. I had to clean the whole house, cook breakfast, even wash my parents' cars. And if I wasn't managing it all in time, they harshly scolded me and would even leave me without food. They also berated me if I brought home bad grades. My life had gone from heaven to hell, and I didn't understand at all why. What did I do wrong? I'd been trying so hard, and I thought I was being a good daughter. And one day, I heard a conversation between them in my dad's office. Entirely by accident, I had been dusting next to a vent in the next room over. My mother said that she was tired of being nice and smiling at a stranger. She also said she was fed up with taking care of me, and she wanted it to be just the two of them again. Children weren't fun at all, she said. I got it. The whole time, my parents had just been playing family with me because being parents was respectable, and not because they actually loved me. And now they had had enough of playing. I didn't have anything to lose. I was already living like a servant in their house, just like Cinderella from the fairy tale that Amanda had told me. So I decided I was going to run away. I packed some of my things in a bag, broke my piggy bank, and I climbed out through the window into the street at night. And why not? It's not like anyone would go looking for me. Although, it wasn't much better in a big city that I hardly knew. I walked around the streets, crying, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go back to the orphanage, but no one was really in a rush to help me. And the passerby that I tried asking waved me off and threatened to call the police on me. I still had no plan by the evening. So I hid in the park and decided to wait. Maybe a miracle would happen. I should have known by then that miracles just didn't happen to someone like me. If I was a character in a fairy tale, it would have been a scary fairy tale with a bad ending. Because they found me. My adoptive parents suddenly jumped out of the darkness, and while I was screaming in fear, they started pushing me into a car, hissing and swearing at me. I was so scared. They looked so angry, and I didn't want to go with them at all, but I had to. They weren't exactly asking my opinion on the matter. And then there was a huge fight at home. They finally stopped pretending to be kind to me and shouted that I could have ruined their reputation, that I should be grateful and not bring trouble, and a whole bunch of other hurtful things. I said that they were hurting me by saying all this, and if they didn't want me, they should just return me to the orphanage since they didn't need me. To which my dad smirked and said that since I was being rude, he would have to punish me. He dragged me by the hand into the basement and locked me in there. I was left in complete darkness in the most terrible place possible. He knew exactly how to punish me because I had always said how afraid of the dark I was. It seemed like an eternity had passed before the doors had opened again. I was still lying on the top step next to the door and shaking with fear. It seemed like some shadows and evil monsters were always walking below me and that if I closed my eyes, they were gonna eat me alive. I didn't even realize at first that the nightmare was over and who exactly family had come and saved me. And when I saw them, it was Amanda, my teacher. She'd seen me in the city and wanted to come up to me, but I'd run away somewhere too quickly. And then she had come to my foster family's house and pulled me out of the basement. It turned out that I'd been sitting there for almost 2 days, just sitting there without food or water and utterly terrified the whole time. I learned all this at the hospital where Amanda and the police ended up bringing me. I was immediately taken away from my family. Amanda took me to her place from the hospital. Of course, it was an ordinary small apartment and not a castle, but for the first time, I felt at home. Amanda helped me and took care of me, and she promised that she would never ever give me away to evil people again. And I believed her. She was the only one in my life who had never hurt or lied to me. But unfortunately, she didn't succeed. The court decided that I had to go back to the orphanage, even though Amanda and I had already done everything to ensure that I'd be allowed to stay with her. And I went back to being bullied. Only now they also joked about how no one wanted me. And the only thing that kept me going was Amanda's tenacity. She applied for my adoption, and I prayed like I had never prayed before that things would just work out for the first time in my life. But unfortunately, my prayers, just like always, were not answered. They told Amanda that she didn't have enough money or good enough accommodations to adopt a child. I told them that money couldn't buy happiness, but that didn't seem to help at all. I still live in the orphanage. It might not be the best place in the world, and it's definitely still terrible here, but I have Amanda. I go through each terrible day just so we can meet on the roof in the evening and look at the stars and keep telling each other wonderful stories. I know that Amanda loves me like a daughter, and that she's still trying to fight for me, and I believe in her, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't have anyone to believe in at all.